Hello, everyone, and welcome to our College Fridays. We've been talking to some career services professionals, some recruiters, and today I want to go through with you just some of the data that's out there, some of the processes that you can use to help yourself or your students find work, and then some of the things that career service providers are doing to help their students. So if you're a parent, this might be good information for you to make sure they're engaging with their career services office. And of course, if you're in a career services office, this is a good thing for you to know what everyone else is doing that you might borrow. I always call it, R&D, rip off and duplicate. And your college colleagues won't mind at all because we all want the same thing, which is for the students who are graduating or even those juniors and sophomores who are trying to get internships and summer jobs. We want them to be successful as they could be. And so today we're going to go through some of the information on who's hiring, partners and services that you may not be aware of or may not know how you can use them. We'll touch on that a little bit. And then alumni networking and what some of the career services offices are doing to make that effective, and something that you can do all on your own if you're a student or a parent, or your career services office might use this function of LinkedIn if you don't have the budget to use some of the other services that we're going to talk about today. So that is our roadmap for today. We're going to talk about some trends, some tips and tools, and then get your input, which of course I always welcome in the chat. So if you're joining us here today, please do share in the chat, say hello, and then we'll look forward to hearing from you other ideas that you might have. Well, let's dive right into some of the data. And I just shared this on my LinkedIn post moments ago, but I want to share it with you in case you haven't seen it and walk you through a little bit of what this is saying. So this is a report of study done by RippleMatch, and RippleMatch is a very interesting service. And we're not going to come back here. So if you're looking at it as a service, you can, let's just go to their homepage for a second. See what they do. So they help match people with jobs. They're more tech focused, as you can see. Dell is one of their partners, PNC Bank. They're more tech focused, but it will be a good thing for you and your students to just play around here and see what else might be on this site that would be of service to you. But in general, let's look at some of the trends that they found in their data. And these are things that are going on with students. So what are students doing? They are maybe getting a job. 38% of them have accepted a job prior to the internship or prior to COVID. So they accepted a job or internship prior to COVID, 38%. So that's great. Hopefully they've been able to keep that job. That's not part of this data, unfortunately. And then 56% are searching for a job. And although this research that says that 6% have paused their search, when we were talking with our career services colleagues last week, I heard from a lot of them that students are overwhelmed. They've got so much going on trying to finish their classes, figure out how to make sure they actually graduate before they start their job search. Now that more graduations are rolling around, that part of the stress will be somewhat removed, hopefully, and they will be kicking into their job search full time. A lot of career services offices are trying to ramp up, figure out how to handle this June flood that is going to be happening. And of course, we'll be here every Friday trying to provide resources for that, trying to help you connect with recruiters, connect with resources. And then we've got some discussions that we'll be having as well to share best practices. What are people doing? How can you help each other? One of the other data points they took was, what are students struggling with? What are they having a hard time with? And the number one thing here was finding companies that are hiring. So we're going to spend a lot of time looking at that today. Then they're not getting response from companies. We'll talk about how they can maybe boost that and boost their application success, because we know that applying online without that referral, without any connection, has a really low probability of them getting that job. So what else can they do? They can network, which is where we're going. And then this third one, that they are experiencing a lot of stress and uncertainty. And I know as a parent, although my kids are much younger, it's hard sometimes to go there with them, to have that empathy with them, that they're really struggling. Yes, they know they need a job, and they're going to handle that stress in a lot of different ways. They may seem completely tuned out, may not be reacting, may not be looking for a job, even though they need to. and they may not be engaging with their career services offices, even though those people are trying so hard to help them. We've got some other research that we'll show here quickly, actually. Let's get over to my other screen, because career services offices really are trying to help these students do something with this time that they have to do the best that they can do. Everyone's doing the best that they can do, right? This study from NACE, which I showed a few weeks ago, but I want to show it again. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, there we go. So this is from the National Association of Colleges and Employers. And if you've never heard of them, they're a good person or a good organization for your student to follow, for you to follow. Most of your college career services offices are already aware of them, and they're aware of this data. So I want to start with what the colleges are doing. And this is just a little bit, you can come here and read it, but it says that the career services themselves are experiencing some hiring freezes. So they may not have more people to help your students, but they do have people that are there to help your students. They're experiencing some budget cuts, but what I really want to point out is down here, 23% are moving their fairs virtual. So it might take some time for them to get there, but they're doing it. They're going to be up online with their virtual career fairs. If you are a parent, ask your career services office, how might you help with that? Can you help them connect with companies? Can you help them get some value? We did a whole session 3 weeks ago with Jerry from Intel, who talked about how to run a virtual career fair, and he went really in depth, lots of information. So if your university is looking to host a virtual career fair, I'd encourage you to go back to that session, watch it, and then if you want to connect with Jerry directly, let me know. I'm happy to make that connection. And he seemed more than happy to help universities get those virtual job fairs up, of course, benefiting Intel as well. They are offering services. They're doing what they can do to help students. And this is the data point that I wanted to share with you, that they are calling students. So a whopping 75% of career services offices are calling students. So if your university is not doing this, it's a great idea. They're splitting up the list, calling those students and checking in on them. If you're a parent, make sure that student's returning that call. This is an office that is there for the sole purpose of helping that student, but that's what the colleges are doing. Then we've got some information about what's going on for employers. So we know that employers are changing daily. So this data is actually from last Friday. They're updating it every Friday, I think, or every Monday. But they're seeing a lot of companies that aren't having change in staffing levels. It's great. Of course, it means that they're not hiring. They're not freezing, they're not laying off, but they're not necessarily hiring. You've got 20% that do have a hiring freeze, and then some that are laying off, furloughing, etc. And there's other data here in terms of what's going on with employers, if they're spending, and then what they're doing to do their virtual interviews. So this is a good section to look at. They're participating in virtual career fairs. They're doing some information sessions. So check those companies' websites, check their Facebook feeds, check their Twitter feeds. Those are low barrier ways for employers to have chats and conversations with interested employees, because anybody can hop on a Facebook Live, anybody can hop on a Twitter chat. There's no barrier to entry there. So a lot of employers are going to be using those forums to connect with employees, even maybe more so than LinkedIn, where they might be trying to reach out and directly recruit. But LinkedIn has that barrier, right? You have to be friends, you have to be connected to have people see some of those things, whereas Twitter and Facebook tend to be a little bit more open. So you might not think about employers on Facebook doing a live event about their company, but actually they might be, because the barrier to do it is so low. It's cheap, it's free. It's there, it's easy for them, just like it's easy for me to be doing this, right? So all of their information about what employers are doing, what recruiters are doing is here. Very helpful for career services staff. And if your students wondering what's going on with companies, they can look there. Now there are almost, it seems like an infinite number of lists around which companies are hiring, who's hiring, who's hiring. I'm seeing new lists almost every day on LinkedIn. My colleagues, career services providers of all types, are sharing these lists. And so it became one of those things where it's like, oh, everybody's got their own list, and it's really confusing. It's really hard to follow. It just doesn't make it easy for us to know what's going on when there's so many lists. And some of the lists I find more helpful than others. So I created this list of lists, the list of all lists, around who's hiring. And it's also got its pros and cons, but I wanted to show it to you. So let me see if I can pull it up. All the companies that are hiring, all the list of lists of companies that are hiring, and how you might use that. So this is on the Career Thought Leaders website. It's under the Job Seekers tab, and it's see who's hiring. See who's hiring. Yep. Who's hiring during the pandemic. And so this gives a little bit of a intro here. And then at the very bottom, you've got the lists of companies that are hiring. And then lists of companies that are hiring in the US, it's mostly US, some lists pull from multiple countries. But you click on this topic link and it takes you into a list of topics. And career services providers from all around that are Career Thought Leaders associates or trained coaches by Career Thought Leaders are adding to this list. So you get a good variety. Here's a list that JobVite is updating. Here's Candor, which is maybe one of the most shared, but I find it to be very hard to follow. It's talking about hiring freezes specifically, not just about people who are currently hiring. There's a LinkedIn editor who's collecting a list of companies who are hiring on LinkedIn. And then you've got the Muse has a list, Indeed has a list. Here at the bottom, there's some remote hiring lists, although there's also a separate list of remote hiring. And then Glassdoor. So Glassdoor is one of my favorite. We're going to look at it here in just a minute, and why it's a good place for you to go. And then Handshake. So this Handshake one is specifically companies that are hiring students. So this might be a good one for you to check out if you haven't, for your university, your college, or your student. So that's on the Career Thought Leaders website under Job Seekers. See who's hiring. We're collecting the lists there. So if you see one that isn't there, feel free to, if you're a Thought Leaders associate or one of our coaches, upload it. If you're not, email it to me and I'll get it uploaded here so that we can keep this list. All right, so one of my favorite ones is the Glassdoor one, and I like it specifically because it goes through some of the main industries. So one of the challenges when we look at something around who's hiring is that we tend to look at, oh, I need to apply to those jobs, but that's not the only benefit, and maybe not even the best benefit of looking at a list of who's hiring. It's really a good way to add to your target list what companies are hiring that you might want to add to your list, even if they're not hiring a position that you're qualified for right now. You can add them to your target list, keep researching them, connecting with people that work there, so that if they have a position that's in your realm next, you already know people that are there, right? Which we'll get around to this networking and alumni piece here in just a second. One of the other sites that I really like this one from Glassdoor, because it goes through industries and might help us at a university or with our students just think about how their skills might fit into these types of industries. So obviously you've got the healthcare industry, and if your person is not a graduate from a healthcare degree, what else could they do in the healthcare industry? And we all think about the high risk, direct service jobs, but there are a lot of other types of jobs that they could have in that industry that might use the skills that they have. You've got data entry, customer service. There's a lot of at-home jobs. Of course, a warehouse job. It doesn't mean you have to be working in the warehouse. What are all the people that support the warehouse? They've got marketing people, they've got salespeople, they've got customer service people, all of those entry-level jobs that support that industry, not just thinking about that industry by itself. You've got security, social worker. Again, if your person's not a graduate in social work, it doesn't mean that there's not peripheral jobs that they might be able to have in that industry because that industry is growing, needs people right now. These are all of the ways that I like to use these lists. You're looking for trends, you're looking for companies, even if they're not hiring in your specific role right now. It's a way to do research and really figure out who should I be networking with, so that my networking efforts are the most likely to pay off and most likely to lead to a job in that industry versus networking in an industry that maybe isn't doing so well right now. And most of their degrees can port into a lot of different industries depending on what role they want to do in that industry, right? So one more here, just because it's also another one of my favorites, is, or not favorites, but it's a good one, especially for students. It's specific to students, is Handshake. So a lot of universities use Handshake to specifically connect students to jobs, but maybe your university doesn't have funds for that right now. If you're a student, reach out to your university and ask your parent. You might, do some research on the website and help your student navigate that system. But they also posted a list of the companies that are hiring students. This is a great place to come and look. Even if you aren't in Handshake, you can probably find these types of positions posted elsewhere if you do a little bit of Googling, even if your university isn't using Handshake right now. So these are excellent tools that you can use, that if you're a parent, if you're a career services office, to connect your students to those open positions. It's their number one struggle. Help them see that there are positions out there, but also how they can use these lists for more than just that ability to connect, right? So partners and services. Think about, with your university, are they using something like Handshake? One of the other ones that one of our universities was using was People Grove, and it's connected into their system. So it's branded for their university, but it's a way that connects students to employers, or students to alumni. And if you're a university and you're looking at some of those systems, People Grove was one that the university seemed to really enjoy, as well as Handshake. Those seem to be two of the main ones. I think they have a little bit different functionality, but it seemed to be pretty common in the university setting. One of the others that we looked at, RippleMatch. So RippleMatch is directly for students. And let me pull up here the last one that I want to talk about, which is Parker Dewey. And this is not, well, universities are connecting with them, but this is one that's easy for a student to connect with on its own, because it's kind of like RippleMatch. It's a system that's out there trying to help students do what are called micro internships. So college services people are coaching their students to kind of negotiate into a micro internship. If that internship was canceled at the company they were working on, how could they do a project-based job for that company? Paid, unpaid, it may not matter to the student right now, because we just need to get some experience to put on the resume. And Parker Dewey has really taken the lead in some ways of setting up this micro internship model. Students can try to do this for themselves with those companies that they were working with for internships that might have gotten canceled, or they can come here and see what types of micro internships are available on Parker Dewey. Or they can, if you're a career services office, this is a partner that you could reach out to help you create these micro internships for your students. Obviously for the graduating seniors, but great for those juniors and sophomores who need some experience this summer as well. So those are some of the services and partners for Career Services Office: People Grove, Handshake, Parker Dewey, and then students directly also looking at RippleMatch. It's more of a job board. Indeed, as we look through the Career Service or the Career Thought Leaders website, a bunch of other job boards and organizations are also building systems to help students. So go to the Career Thought Leaders website. You can poke around at some of those lists and see who is doing the work to try to match people and students up with jobs. So the last thing I want to talk about is this alumni networking. So one of the great things that our career services folks were talking about last week is how they are really reaching out to their alumni. So one university was talking about how they were connecting to their university alumni services, and then that alumni services office sent an email out to all the alumni and said, hey, help our class, help class of 2020 by doing these things. Say yes if someone wants to connect to you on LinkedIn. If you have an open job, send it back to us. And one of the career services office, Kim Meredith from Mercer, was talking about how they're creating a list, a Google sheet that of course then they can share with all their students, where they're putting in those alumni jobs that the alumni send back to them. Really connecting to your alumni and engaging them in helping these students. They want to help. They want to figure out how they can be there for the students. So give them some specific action items in addition to, if you're using a system like People Grow or Handshake, alumni can help in many other ways, especially in the networking. Now, if your organization doesn't have one of those systems, or maybe even in addition to that, there's an excellent feature that you can use on LinkedIn to connect with alumni. It's not the easiest thing to find, so I'm going to show you how to find it really quick. And students can do this. You don't have to be a career services office to do this. So let's go to my profile. So you would go to your student's profile. Obviously, if you're a university, you can get to this page through your employer or through your education. So when I'm on my profile, all of my experiences at Colorado State University are linked to my profile, my education, and then my experiences further down in my experience section. But when I click on that university, I get taken to the university page. And this is what you're trying to get to, your university page. So the university your student's at, or the university you're working at if you're in career services. And then when you're on this page, there's this little alumni tab over here. And when you click on that alumni tab, it kind of switches gears into this whole new system that's just focused on helping you understand, categorize, and connect with the alumni for that university. So this shows you where those alumni work. May not be as, riveting, but then it starts to show you people. So these are people that also are fellow alumni. And when you are in this system, you can use this search function to search alumni by a lot of different things. So I could put in a keyword. Let's say that my student is in healthcare. I can put in a keyword like healthcare, and it will bring up people down here that have healthcare in their profile, most likely in their headline or their job titles. And I can also search by company. So if I wanted to work at Amazon, let's say, I could see that they're hiring. I want to clear that healthcare first. And then I could search Amazon specifically, and it shows me there's 2,800 alumni that work at Amazon. And so it will show me people who are at Amazon, who are alumni, and if I'm connected to them or not. Obviously, our career services staff are probably going to have more connections. The students might not. However, they can see that connect-in point. So if I click onto Lindsay's profile here, she's not a first connection. She's a second connection. But if I click on her profile, I can see all of our mutual connections. And one of them might be your career services person if you're a student or a parent. So you could ask that career services person to make an introduction, or you as the parent might be the connector and you could make an introduction for your student to that person. If there's no one that can really make an introduction for you as a career services person or as a student, the other thing you can do is try to reach out to this person individually here on LinkedIn. And you just want to say, I'm a student graduating 2020. I'm really interested in learning more about Amazon and what it's like to work there. You don't want to make that initial ask for, can you help me get a job? They don't know you, right? You're doing a cold email on LinkedIn, so they don't know you. But you can do that exploratory conversation, make that connection, and see where it goes. See if you can build a relationship with that person or learn more about Amazon that would help you with your application. If you're applying online, if you make this connection, then you could say, and I also applied for a position. I wouldn't necessarily say that in the first email unless the person's a recruiter. If they're, a manager or a individual contributor, you just say, hey, I'd love to learn more about what it's like to work at Amazon. And then you do, a conversation, hopefully, maybe virtual over the phone, maybe a video, and then say, I'm also thinking about putting in an application for this position, or I also applied for this position. Do you have any thoughts or suggestions? And it's a conversation. You're exploring, you're getting advice, you're getting information, and you're building a relationship with that person. So this gives you an opportunity to find those alumni, do it by keyword, do it by company, and then make that connection. And if you are a job seeker, you can upgrade your LinkedIn profile to job search. You get 30 days free. So you can try it out, making some of these connections, sending some messages, and seeing how it goes to work this networking and go through LinkedIn. Also, make sure that if you're a career services office, you're connecting with your alumni services office to build those bridges for students. And if you're a student or a parent, thinking about how that student is utilizing the resources that their career services office is providing. So that's some of the resources that you can use to help your students find jobs, help them find internships. We are going to be live again next week with a recruiter. And then on May 29th, we're going to get our career services crew together again and share best practices, share ideas. So if you want to register for that, you can register for that on the Career Thought Leaders website and join that group of career services professionals who is sharing those resources. We look forward to seeing you back here again next week for our live. We're going to be working or talking to a recruiter about interviewing and how students can interview better. And if you have any other resources or questions, let us know. We'd be happy to share them or answer them on our weekly College Fridays session.